This is brilliant.
Actionable plans that we can begin to work on right now that will produce better boys for our society.
This is one of the events that I think should form the basis of all diaspora events. I can tell that this event will be a success.
Because we're here as men who impact change, to impact other men. When it comes to class, simplicity is the key. And men, please do away with the baggy hems.
This isn't fashion police.
Just amazing stories, a great networking event. Hopefully I can talk to some people.
And I'm looking forward to, like have a fun time.
So what do you want to do when you get older?
Be an astronaut.
Oh, you want to be an astronaut?
I'm excited to be here to meet new people, to learn about the challenge. Well, I think ultimately the positivity of the event, also of course being invited and getting a reward, that always.
My name is Patricia.
Patricia? Ashley?
Yo, I start to be the greatest to tell them that I'm ready. I'm coming to the town from the bottom into the city, growing up alone.
I'm so happy because I'm among the people that are bringing back change.
I'm with my two boys from Sierra who are with me.
It's really a game changer.
We're expecting to inspire the whole.
And the reason I am here, I have grown up around boys.
It's so important for us to raise our young boys to be great young men in this country, especially in today's
We've done this in Kenya,
yes,
and it's being done here in Baltimore.
I think it's a really noble cause and I will support all the way.
Enjoy myself, to grow, to meet new people.
I'm looking forward to supporting this initiative.
Listen, I had no mom, had no time, I had no way.
I'm just excited again about African Americans and our continental African brothers and sisters getting together and doing something.
I'm going to be speaking about gun violence, how to break the cycle of the generation.
For multiplies. Whatever you complain about divides.
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining Men Impact Change Wellness Series 1, which is breaking the stigma of mental health. And what you just saw was a video clip from 2017 honor ceremony. For those of you that are familiar with Men Impact Change, hold on just a second, technology here. All right, so for those of you that are familiar with Men Impact Change, you already know about the honor ceremony that we host every single year, where we identify men making a positive impact in various areas in the community, and we honor them every single year. And what you just saw was a clip from 2017. And as you can see, we have beautiful faces here. Some of them are actually honorees of Men Impact Change. We are going to introduce them formally in a little bit later. But right now, what we want to do is really talk about the agenda of today. So I'm going to go ahead and launch the PowerPoint here and share my screen. All right. So the webinar today is a Wellness Series 1. So it's the first of 3 series. And the topic, as I mentioned, is breaking the stigma of mental health. And some of the speakers, as you just saw, is myself. For those of you that don't know me, I am the founder and CEO of Men Impact Change. And with me is our keynote speaker, Mr. Rashad Bowtie Mills. He's a licensed therapist, a radio host, and a 2019 M.I.C. education honoree. We are going to share more about his accolades and the things he's achieved a little bit later. We also have Esther Pauline. She's not new face. She's one of our advisory committee members. She's been part of Men Impact Change as well for a couple of years now. On top of that, she's also an event coordinator. We also have Kevin Wayne Johnson. He's an executive coach, a John Maxwell certified leader, He's also a Men Impact Change Leadership Honoree and also an advisory committee as well. We also have Charles Remitto. Charles is a coach and also a mentor. He's a Men Impact Change Advisory Committee member. He just joined us, and we are very, very excited because he has brought in a lot of great energy, a lot of great information as well that will benefit the entire community. And next is just sharing a little bit of today's agenda. So the first one is housekeeping rules. It's very simple. Feel free. Today we are talking about ways to break this stigma that is ravaging the community. So please, any questions you may have, you have the opportunity to share those questions. You can either share anonymously or have your name on there as well. So we have a section on Zoom where it says Q&A. That is the section where you're going to kind of drop your questions. We're also going to introduce Men Impact Change. I know we have a couple of new attendees, and some of them may not know what Men Impact Change is. So we are going to share a little bit about Men Impact Change. And of course, an introduction of Men Impact Change Mentor Point. We're also going to spotlight some of our partners. So our partners are very, very special. They are the reason why we are able to continuously offer these webinars. This webinar is free, and it's free because of our amazing partners. So we're going to spotlight them a little bit later. We're going to also formally introduce our keynote speaker, and then the panel discussion will kick off, and we are going to spotlight our partners again and also give you some actionable steps. So for those of you that are new to Men Impact Change, Men Impact Change is a dynamic, multicultural 501c organization founded in 2014. The mission is to connect, advocate for, honor, and educate the Black male while preparing young entrepreneurs through training and leadership development opportunities. You can see the picture right there. This is a picture from 2018, just 2 years before the pandemic. We had an amazing honor ceremony, and these are some of the young men that were in attendance that year. Our vision is to bridge the economic gap through entrepreneurship education while building capable men and leaders of the next generation. Some of our initiatives include the Men Impact Change Honor Ceremony. As we mentioned, we host this every year. We also have the Men Impact Change Mentor Point and the Black Boys Entrepreneurship Program. I'll take a pause just for a second to invite you to please follow us all over social media. We are on Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, and Twitter, and you'll find us with the tag Men Impact Change at Men Impact Change. Now, this webinar is also being streamed live on Facebook. So when you go on Facebook, you will find us there as well. So please like us on Facebook and share, because what we're about to share is very important information. And also, if you have not yet, please subscribe on our newsletters on the website. So when you go to menimpactchange.org/about us, you will see a pop-up where you can put in your contact email address so that you can keep in touch with our initiatives. So what is Men Impact Change Mentor Point? This is one of our 2022 key objectives, and the goal is very simple. It is to provide the young men with mentorship webinar sessions on relevant and timely topics. For example, the topic today, we had planned some other webinars to host, but when we listened to the community and we realized that this topic of mental health is very important, we had to adjust our strategy, and we had to really tackle this issue before anything else. So in case you have any topic that you feel that Men Impact Change can bring to the community, you're welcome to send us some of the suggestions either on Facebook or through the contact form on the website, or you can also email us info@Men Impact Change and share any ideas or if you want to join us to be one of the speakers as well, or maybe recommend some speakers, you can do so as well. So the Men Impact Change Mentor Point series on mental health is, we have 3 series. One is today, and we have series 2, which is scheduled for March 17th at 7 p.m. We are going to focus on mental health on millennials and Gen Z. We know that's a very special generation. They're dealing with very unique challenges with social media and all the societal pressures. So we are going to tackle that on March 17th. So some of the team members are going to share the link on either Facebook or on Zoom chat so that you can register. It's up and running, so you can actually register, and it's also free. The other series is on April 7th. We are going to discuss ways to sustain a healthy lifestyle. Men Impact Change is a nonprofit organization, so we are welcoming you to partner up with us by making a donation. You can do this in several ways. One, a lot of us shop on Amazon. So if you use Amazon Smile, please consider making Men Impact Change as your charity of choice. It's a very simple step as indicated here. It's very simple. When you just go to Amazon choice, it's gonna kind of guide you on how you can make Men Impact Change as your charity of choice. Also, you can donate by texting GIVE to 443-210-3293. And what's gonna happen is you're going to get a link to make a donation, and you can partner up with that by doing so. We want to give a special shout out to our dynamic partners. Some of them are live joining us right now. Hakuna Matata Shop, which is located in Washington State. However, they have an online shopping as well. So if you are interested in having some of the African decors, this is your opportunity to look them up. Because of them, we are hosting this particular webinar. So please look them up either on Facebook or Etsy and support them as well. Swahili Village has been an ongoing partner since 2018. They have a restaurant in DC, in Maryland, and also they're opening one in New Jersey. So please consider supporting these small businesses. And we also have Lakida Homes Realty Group. A realtor by the name of Kenny has also been a very big advocate for Men Impact Change. So look them up and support them as well. All right, so we are getting to the meat of everything, the reason why we are here. And I'm very honored and excited to introduce you a very, very special speaker tonight. His name is Rashad Bowtie Mills. He's a licensed therapist, an author, a broadcast journalist, a radio host, a motivational speaker who has a passion to speak on broke but not broken. He was born in Baltimore, Maryland, and desires to speak with at-risk youth and redirect them based on his life experiences of being shot, battling and overcoming alcoholism, and growing up in a single-parent household. Mr. Mills' persistence and determination has initiated his personal development of an ending self-education, which distinguished him as an authority in mental health. Rashad Mills' passion to learn and his hunger to realize greatness in himself and others has helped him to achieve self-love. Mr. Rashad, as I mentioned, is also one of our honorees. In 2019, I believe, we honored him as in his passion in education, especially in mental health. So welcome, Mr. Rashad. It's such an honor to have you.
Thank you so much. I'm appreciative of the opportunity, and I look forward to sharing with everyone this evening. Thank you again. I appreciate it greatly.
Awesome. So we are going to give the rest of the panelists here an opportunity to share one or two things. I will start with Charles Remitto. If you can share briefly anything you'd like the audience to know, but most importantly, why you're so passionate about the mental health topic.
Good afternoon, good evening, good morning. I know people are watching from all over the place.
Yeah, I'm
Yeah,
sorry, Charles, your audio is not very clear.
it's not. Good afternoon, good morning. Can you hear me now? All right, maybe it's because it was down. Anyway, I know it's people are watching from all over the place and maybe even Kenya and all that, but it's very interesting. It's a good topic for us to have, especially people like us who are, first of all, men. Then we have sons. I have a 25-year-old son, but I also deal with a lot of young men, young generation. Uh, Main reason I'm interested in this is because we've been ignoring the stigma surrounding mental health, especially in the Black community, in other communities, in the African community. And this stops many men, especially, from seeking help when they need it most. And it's literally killing them. And that's why I'm interested to talk about this and to learn more because we need to remove this stigma because we need to remove this. I think it's almost the number one killer now of the men and the African community, men especially. So that's an
You're very
interesting.
right. Mental health is definitely at the very top, taking the lives of men in general. So you're very right. And thank you so much, Mr. Charles. And Kevin as well, and then Esther.
Well, I'm a firm believer that we need to open up the aperture and have a conversation. Too many of us internalize how we're feeling, what we're going through, because men tend to think that we can handle it and we don't need to bring other people into our personal issues. But this is a community issue. It's a global issue. And the more resources that we can provide to men will give them the confidence and give them the motivation to open up and have the conversation. I'm a firm believer in education and knowledge, and then heightening the level of awareness in terms of what's going on in our community. That helps to break the stigma. And then once the stigma is broken, now we can have the discussion and we can have the dialogue because we've created an environment that's a little bit more comfortable for men to open up and share. So that's my interest, and that's why I'm here. Thank you for your leadership, Sonny.
Absolutely. Thank you for being here.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Esther Pauline, and I am so honored to be on this panel as well. The reason why I am interested in this is because I am a mother of two young men, and actually one of them has suffered mental illness. And at the time when it first happened, I did not know what to do. I did not know even how to speak about it. But then when I've navigated and continue to navigate even up to now in seeking resources, seeking therapy, and just getting knowledge and awareness of what to look for, what are the signs that I need to be looking for, especially with my younger one, because it's my older one that actually has been struggling with mental illness. So when I look at my other son, is the things that I need to be looking for, the things that I need to be aware of, because at the time my oldest had come home for Christmas and we thought that everything was okay. And then in February, we received a call that he had tried to commit suicide. So as a mother, all I could do was break down at that point. But I went ahead and sought out the resources, sought out therapy so I could be able to help him when he did return home. So that's why I'm passionate about mental health.
And Esther, you have been such a support system to even Men Impact Change and to a lot of people in the community as well. And, you know, being that you have already experienced this particular issue, you have the skill set and the tools, and we really appreciate you for coming and sharing your expertise on this topic.
You're welcome. Glad to be here.
All right, so right now we are going to dive right in on the topics, and Esther, you can take it over.
Okay, I have a question for the panelists. And the first question is, what is a stigma? and what does it look like or feel like? So I looked up the word stigma, and what I came up with was a mark of disgrace. So why do you think that it's a mark of disgrace, especially in the male community?
If I could jump in, I think it's a mark of disgrace simply because, particularly as men, we are not bred to talk about these very sensitive topics. We are not taught to express ourselves, right? A lot of our fathers didn't have the tools. Many of our grandfathers didn't have the tools to express themselves. So generationally, it's become one of these things that, hey, if you want to talk about your feelings, what is that? Talking about feelings as a man, that's not a cool thing, or it's not welcome in certain communities, because in certain communities that we grew up in, we are taught to be sort of a manly man, to be tough and to process life without sharing how we truly feel. So I think it is a mark of disgrace. And depending on the particular family that an individual was raised in and a community that was raised in, it's a terrible thing for men to talk about expressing feelings, and it's actually frowned upon.
Yeah, I would echo what Brother Rashad just communicated. It's something that hasn't been normalized in the life of the majority of men, not all men. I don't want to use a broad brush in a universal sense, but for many men, speaking of myself in particular, I was raised by a U.S. Marine. So from the time I was ankle high, I was taught to be tough. You know, you fall off that bike, scrape off that thing and keep moving. Don't talk about it. Don't even cry. And so when we have other issues and circumstances and situations that we're dealing with as men, we're kind of raised to deal with it on our own. And the other issue, I think, that brings that word stigma into it, when it's all said and done, how many other men do I personally know that are dealing with a mental health issue? If, in fact, they're not telling me, we're not having a conversation. So I don't know that my brother even needs the help. So that's part of it as well. So congratulations on Men Impact Change having this type of a scenario and this type of panel discussion to help the men in our communities, not just locally and regionally, but nationally and internationally, to feel more comfortable and having the conversation and keeping the information in confidence, not going out and telling others what we talked about, but we keep it in confidence. And that will also be very helpful as well.
Yeah, just to back up on that. Am I clear on the sound now? We good?
Yep.
All right. I'll just say something about it's a macho thing. You know, guys have that macho thing. If you ever watch the John Wayne movies, that's how we were brought up. Be strong, be quiet. So even for men, even depression, looking at depression, they still think it's a weakness. To say I'm depressed, we view it as a weakness in the first place. So I would say it's about this toxic masculinity. Even being a male is toxic in itself, because what society expects of you, what your family expects of you, it's something you're brought up. And so you have all this pressure on you. Am I living at my expected performance by my family, expected performance by my relatives? Maybe am I allowed to cry? Because sometimes you feel like crying, but you're told, hey, you're a macho man, you're masculine, you can't express, you can't show your emotions. So when you bundle all those together, they have a way of coming out. But because you've been told men don't cry, that's where the stigma comes in. Like, no, I can't show my feelings, and you hold them in, you know.
That is very good information. I hope everybody that's joining us, you're taking notes and making sure that you glean and learn from this. So the second question I would like to ask you guys is, one of the ways to break mental health stigma is by openly talking about it. How can we encourage a community, especially the young men, to talk about it?
I think we have to create healthy and safe spaces for these conversations to take place. So if I am one that I have never been taught to talk about mental health, to talk about feelings, or anything along those lines, I'm going to be less resistant to even begin to go down that path if I don't feel like that environment is safe. So that environment has to be safe. And I think Brother Kevin had mentioned a little bit earlier, talking about creating safe spaces like this, right? This is like an awesome forum for some young man that's potentially watching and says, hey, I see people, particularly men of color, talking about it. So that makes it okay to talk about it. So one of the things that I do as a therapist, and I'm not just talking about in session, in wherever I'm at, I'm talking about mental health, because to me, somebody else might be watching and that gives them sort of this internal power. Yeah, well, he's talking about mental health. Maybe I can talk to him about mental health. And then imagine if those little pockets grew and grew, now we have more and more environments where it's okay to talk about mental health. And I think just talking about mental health in a general sense, right? So, and when I mean a general sense, what would that look like if you get in your car in the morning with your kids and on the way to taking them to school, you know, or picking them up from school, how was your day today? And not just how was your day, what emotions did you experience? That's one of the things that I started to do with my twin girls. But what if we do that? Now we're creating these regular spaces. So it's not, if we talk about mental health, it's like, oh, mental health, wow. No, we're making it pretty regular.
Yeah.
It's a regular thing. And we're creating this space that it's a regular thing. So in my household, for an example, we talk about mental health. How are you feeling today? Did anybody bully you? What emotions did you experience? And it's become so commonplace that my kids are responding to it. My kids are telling me about some of their friends. Well, you know, my friend has anxiety. And I'm like, oh, okay. What is anxiety? My kids know I'm a therapist, but what is anxiety? So my kids are now telling me about anxiety and what they think of depression. And we're having these dialogue, this sort of back and forth dialogue. So I think it's just creating these spaces where, and Brother Kevin used his word again, where we normalize it. This shouldn't be abstract. This should be very, very normal in our households and our communities.
That's a very good point, Rashad. And I see one of our attendees here says that stigma, research shows that stigma affects all due to culture as well. So how would we, in communities, and especially African communities where they don't really talk about emotions, how would you suggest that we begin having those conversations?
Well, one way to answer that question, Sunny, is access to information. And a byproduct of access to information is now getting more venues on board. So I know we're going to share resource information as a part of this panel discussion, but there are a lot more resources out here available for us to learn more about what causes it, what to do about it, how to pick up signs that someone is dealing with it. These resources can now be taken into our social and civic organizations, into our church, into our workplace, our neighborhood association. When you think about all of the different connections that we have that we're currently not comfortable in talking about the issue, the more access to information we have and the more venues that are generating the opportunity to have a conversation, now we're starting to open up the aperture. And that's a good way to eradicate or at least reduce the current stigma that's out there. And I know we're talking about men, but this is for all of our beautiful women as well that are internalizing this issue. And so I'm a firm believer in access to information. Now, one of the things that I'm doing to participate in the conversation is in my role as the Faith Community Commissioner for our governor here in Maryland for suicide prevention, because the two kind of cross-sect. People start to think that I'm not good enough to be here, and so I'll just take my life. But no, let's open up the conversation about why you feel that way. And it always goes to what's happening here. What's happening here? So helping people to know who they are, to understand, and this is where the churches can come in, helping people to understand God's purpose for their lives. And then brothers like Rashad, who actually specialize in this area in terms of therapy, where to refer them to, the different counselors that are there in the community, and not to mention the parental role, mom and dad at home. And so we have these resources. We just need to get them out into people's hands, and then they can choose which of those is the safest environment to open up the conversation and go. So the more we can get people on board and understand the severity of the topic, the more effective we can be in reaching more people.
Absolutely. I love that. I love that. Thank you so much, Kevin. The next question.
Sorry, if I may
Okay,
just
go ahead. Go
yeah,
ahead.
just backpedal on that. Is men, sometimes we have even a very hard time making social connections, because in the first place we don't even know what's happening to us ourselves. So this is where we have to share our stories, even in the church, as you said. Sometimes we have to have the groups that are supportive of addicts, or mental health support groups, or addict support groups where people can go. And it's also okay for the parents, especially the dad or the moms, to show their emotions to the kids. Sometimes it's okay to cry. Let your son see you crying, because that's how they know, oh, it's okay to cry. Hug them when you see them crying. Go and hug them. Tell them it's okay. Don't tell them don't cry. Just let them do, support them as well. And on that, sharing your stories, just like Mr. Rashad has shared his story coming on, what caused you to do that. It's okay. Go out there and let people hear your story. There may be one or two or three people who will be touched by that. So let's get good, not just the education part, but also the physical. Let's show our emotions. Let's show people we are human too. It's okay to cry. And that's the way we are going to overcome this, uh, what is it called?
Pandemic, this
Yeah,
invisible pandemic of
yep, the
mental health.
stigma, the
Yes.
stigma of people thinking that it's not okay to cry, it's not okay to show your emotions, it's not okay. And then we realize that mental health is also a medical problem. Let's treat it the same way we treat other things, because there are hormones involved as well. Now there's more understanding. This is stuff that needs to be shared out there. There's more medical showing there are hormones involved. So it's just like you'd approach, maybe somebody told you, I have a stomachache. You're like, oh, what happened? So the same. Depression is a type of a medical, and we can have clinical depression, which needs medication. So those who need to seek help, let them seek it, because they deserve it as well.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Charles. And you actually tackled one of the questions that we had on the list here. Now, I see some questions coming through the chat. I recommend that we use the Q&A version of it. It's just going to be easier for the team here to access some of those questions. So if you can please address those questions on the Q&A section, that would be great. So the other question that we have here is 1 in 5 people will have a mental illness in their lifetime. How can we talk about this with our friends and family? And I know you've already shared that, but knowing that right now we have several attendees here, and the research says 1 in 5 will have the mental illness in their lifetime. How can we prepare for that? Or what are some of the things that we can do in order to really have an environment that is going to be more supportive when we face that particular challenge in the future? And I will address that question to Mr. Rashad. And then Kevin, you can also, and Charles can also jump in.
So I think with that, Sonny, you gave the statistic 1 in 5 people will be faced with some kind of mental illness. I know it's going to sound very redundant and very repetitive at this point, but just really creating an environment, because here's what I'm a huge advocate of. People are less likely to talk about something if they don't know what the reception is going to be like once they talk about it. So if I'm in the household and I'm a young man and I'm having some, suicidal thoughts, I don't know that I would talk about that in a house where that's never been talked about before, or I've never seen, any resources around me, whether it's in a school environment or a church environment, any other environment I'm in. If I've never seen any resources, or I've never seen that situation being talked about, then I'm less likely to talk about it. So to me, it's just creating an environment, having the conversations in a proactive manner as opposed to a reactive manner. Again, if I'm talking about mental illness, what that looks like, and just having these basic questions, right? Then that sets itself up that if I am going through something, then I may want to talk about it, because we've talked about that before. But if we never talked about it before, if we never just talked about it from a general sense, then I'm not going to talk about it. And then, we have this 1 in 5, and the 1 in 5, that number is going to be there regardless. 1 in 5 people are going to go through mental illness. But I think it's how well we are prepared to assist them once they go through. And that becomes a result of, hey, we got to talk about it in advance. And again, by talking about it, people are going to say, hey, if I talk about it, I think the people around me, they're going to be there to support me, right? And as that you had mentioned something before, dealing with your own son, right? And I think that when situations come out like that, it's like you had to learn the resources, how to support your son, right? As these things kind of pop up. But what if we become even more proactive, right? We become more proactive. We have the opportunity to look at signs and pay attention to things in advance. And so I know I said a lot, but the main takeaway is really talking about it. And it's like it's almost like setting the stages in our environments to kind of talk about mental health. We really, really have to do that. And I can't stress that fact enough. I see so many clients on a daily basis. They are coming to me, and these people are, gone 30, 20, 30, some 40 years, and they've never talked about these things that they are bringing to me because that environment wasn't there. And then, Brother Kevin said it too, access to information. So I said a lot. Now I want to shut up because I get, really excited and passionate.
No, we love that. We love that. And, feel free to keep talking because this is exactly what we need. I'm taking a lot of notes as well, so I can really summarize it at the very end. But yeah, that's a very, very good point. And I see a question here from Pastor Julius. He's asking, what would be the role of the church or of a pastor, and how can they equip the congregation to deal with mental health?
Yeah. So yeah, thank you, Pat. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Charles.
Okay.
Go right ahead.
No, I'll just jump a little bit and then I'll let you go in that. I was saying, I think for the main story is also pastors. They need to let people know they are human too, because I know most of them are going through the same situation. There's actually a book I'm reading right now. It's called Attacking Anxiety by this pastor. He says, from panicked and depressed to alive and free. He's Pastor Sean Johnson, lead pastor of the Red Rocks Church. And this pastor went through a period where he was so depressed that he got a panic attack while he was driving on the road. And actually, he stopped seeing the vehicles in front of him and jumped out of the car and started screaming. And he was thinking of committing suicide right there on the road. And this is a whole pastor. But why? Because he wants people are coming to him with these questions, but he doesn't know how to answer them. Why? Because people are not talking about it. He doesn't have the resources. But now, because he's educated himself, because he's gone through that, it's by bringing experts like Mr. Rashad Mills and other experts. That's what the church can do. They have to acknowledge, yeah, maybe I'm a trained theologian, I'm a trained philosopher, I'm a trained Bible scholar, but do I have this part of psychology? Do I have this part of profession? No. So they create like classes where they can bring speakers and other guest people, experts, resource persons who can come to the church, and they hold those seminars and to give their stories, and they have people share who've gone through this and have overcome that. That was what I was thinking.
Awesome.
Yeah, and thank you, Charles. And so just to piggyback on Pastor Julia's question, so I've served as an associate pastor and a senior pastor, and one of my former members is actually on with us. And when I was pastoring a church, I was very deliberate and very intentional in reaching out to the local community for people that are in the trenches doing the work. right? Because Felicia is communicating with us in the chat, you know, how can we help? So I've already volunteered to help have a conversation. But in a given month, for example, September is National Suicide Prevention Awareness Month. October is National Domestic Violence Awareness Month. We would have community members to come into the church for, number one, to give them some assistance, say thank you, pray with them, and then I would deliver a sermon from the pulpit to encourage and inspire them. And at the same time, we were educating the congregation on the importance of having some insight into what's going on in the local community, because the government programs are good, but oftentimes those government programs need a spiritual element to come alongside and offer some prayer. And that's what we did. So that's just one of many different things that a church can do and the congregation in terms of awareness. The other thing is we hosted an annual health fair. So in the health fair, we had a dentist to come out and check your dental hygiene. A doctor would come out and check your blood pressure and your heart rate. And guess what? We also had a table to talk about what? Mental health, right? Getting the information out, sharing, each one teach one. So as each member of the church learns more and more about these societal ills, suicide, mental health, domestic violence, I mean, it goes on and on and on. Maybe that can now turn into 5 people that become educated, and those 5 people go tell 10 people. And before you know it, that one local church has made a huge impact in the local community. So we can all do something. It's just a matter of being innovative and creative, because the world is tough. Life is tough. So it's no wonder that 1 in 5 of us reacts in a way that impacts us in a negative way, because everyone can't handle the pressure, perhaps like you, or perhaps like I can. So those are some examples, Pastor Julius, and everybody who's watching and listening, that we can do on an individual level. Just get creative, get innovative, but equally important, get involved to see how you fit and be a difference maker.
Awesome, awesome. So the next question here.
I see a question in the chat, so I'm going to go ahead. It's from Kenny. It says, this is not a question, but rather a challenge for the group. We all know, or will know someone who will need professional mental health. Let's be part of the solution. But then I also have Anthony Jones that says, what happens at the intersection of mental health and one's experience as a member of the Black community? If one of you could answer that, or all of you could answer that.
Did I hear the question phrases, what is the intersection of mental health in the Black community?
Yes, what happens at the intersection of mental health? That's the first part. And then, and one's experience as a member of the Black community.
I want to take a shot at it, but I want to make sure I'm understanding, and hopefully whoever put that in there, if I'm phrasing it incorrectly, you give me more clarity on it, is the intersection of mental health and being a member of the Black community. Does it sound like that I'm?
I think so.
Okay.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
I think in the intersection of those is change and healing, right? And that's what I think that the intersection is. And again, that's a very interesting question, because that brought us here tonight, right? Really talking about the stigma. That question really highlights the stigma that has been going on for quite some time. If I have a mental health illness, if I'm battling some kind of mental health challenges, but I'm a member of the Black community, what is the intersection? The intersection is, to me, it's healing, right? And just really pulling back that stigma even more, because that question leads me to believe, hey, guess what? I have a mental health illness and I'm a part of the Black community. What happens, right? To be honest with you, healing happens if I can put aside that I have a mental health illness, and I can meet here and I can understand that because I am a person of color, it is okay for me to get help. It is okay for me to heal, and it's okay for me to want to get past these challenges. Then I meet here. If one of those don't meet in the middle, then we have what? We have the continuation of somebody with a mental health illness that is a person of color, and they never intersect. Because a lot of times what is happening right now, and I see this a lot, we have a lot of Black men, right, that they understand. They'll say, yeah, I have a mental health illness. You can get some to admit that, right? But being a Black man, it's hard to move some of them in the middle because of, you know, sort of the stigma that goes along with it. And I think they have to mesh a little bit in for order for the healing to take place. Because I can't walk in to see a therapist and say, yeah, hey, I'm Rashad Mills, I have a mental illness, but I'm not a Black man. They go together. And so the intersection, to answer that question, is that is the start of potentially a lot of healing, but we got to do away with sort of having them like, you know, one from another. They have to be entwined, right? You have to do that. You can't tell a therapist, well, see, clearly I'm a Black man, but I don't have a mental health illness, knowing that you do. It's like, they have to go together in order for something in terms of change to be effective.
Yeah, I think, okay, sorry. I think also jumping on that, I think the main issue with maybe being Black or person of color is maybe we don't have a lot of close people we can go to, maybe a father figure or a man who is close to you, you haven't seen, so you don't know how to deal with what you're feeling. You feel angry, you feel bitter, you feel anything, but you know, you feel irritable, but you don't know why. And because you don't have anyone that you can go talk to, and maybe you can talk to your mom and she'll say, be a man, come on, suck it up, or that's what society will tell you. So you don't know how to deal with this, and that's why you see people getting guns, into gunfight, or they jump into drugs because they're looking for a way to get this out of their system. So the first is to identify, what is this I'm dealing with? Once you identify it in yourself, then you might be able to know, because there are ways that you can start dealing with it, maybe counting. If I get very aggressive at work, maybe I'm at work in the office and I feel, oh, I'm getting into a kind of a panic attack or anxiety attack. What do? Just distract yourself, start counting. I call it I don't know if you are familiar with this, Rashad, but we call it the 3-3-3 rule. Look for three things. Look, maybe a red thing, a blue thing, so that's three things you are looking for. And that distracts you also. Smell three things. So once you look at three things, then smell three things. If you can't smell anything, maybe you're in the office, try to imagine those smells that brought you peace, those smells that you like, and you'll see your mind is starting to cool off and you're getting off that anxiety. The other that thing you can do is move your toes, move your head, or touch something, because you're trying to distract yourself from that. So it's called the 3-3-3 rule, that you try to identify to get yourself from that anxiety attack, from that panic. It distracts you from the feeling you have. But that father figure issue I was talking about is what is keeping a lot of people of color. They have nobody to talk to. They have nobody to share these experiences with. And if you don't have anybody, even when you're around your buddies, they don't know how to talk to themselves, so they don't know how to talk to each other.
Can I just jump?
Go ahead, Rashad.
I'm sorry, Sunday. I just want to jump in really quickly because I see somebody had mentioned, and I think it was Felicia had actually put in the chat. She had made a point earlier and she kind of went back to it. And I think she said that's what she was talking about earlier, to make sure that more men are visible in households. And I agree with that wholeheartedly. Here's one of the things that I do want to tell everybody that's actually on tonight, is that there are men of color who are therapists. And I know that's like the Captain Obvious statement because I'm a man of color and I'm here tonight, but I think a lot of people, they do not see that. And I know a lot of moms that says, hey, Rashad, you're like a unicorn. I finally found a therapist that's a man of color that understands my son. And a lot of moms will say, I literally stopped trying for a while. So I really want to reiterate that there are a lot of men of color who are therapists that are available to serve people in the community, where young boys can say, oh, I resonate with him, you know, whether it's his accent. Oh man, he's from Baltimore. I pick it up in his accent. or, whatever it is, it's some kind of connection that can make that therapeutic process that much easier. I just really want to stress that because I know a lot of people, they don't see men of color who are therapists, and they really become discouraged and they stop moving forward in terms of trying to find a therapist who is a man of color. And I really wanted to share that with people because there are a lot of therapists out there that are men of color. Now, you'll definitely have to do your due diligence because a lot of therapists at the moment in the last 2 years have literally been swamped. But I just wanted to encourage somebody tonight that if you are specifically seeking a therapist who is a man of color, please don't give up hopes. I just wanted to share that.
Yes, and I was going to also say that we have some resources that Rashad and the team shared that we are going to share with everyone at the end of this session. So stick to the end. We have a few organizations that are bringing together men of color that are therapists and psychologists as well. So it's very important to also thank you, Rashad, for noting that for us. So we see a couple of questions. So please keep them coming. We're going to ask them at the end of the session. We want to get through a few questions here that were submitted at the beginning. And the other question that we have here, because we have a lot of parents that are tuned in, many of whom have actually reached out to us and expressed concern for their son. What are some of the actions they can take to support their sons that are dealing with mental illness? And Kevin, you can take this first, and then Charles, then Rashad.
Yeah, so I didn't share earlier with you all. I was just sort of waiting for the right time, but you're talking to someone who has dealt with this. So I'm the older brother of a sibling who was born with a mental disability, and I've had to support him and advocate for him all of his life because, like I said earlier, my dad was a U.S. Marine, so he was often away fighting in America's wars. So I'm at home with mom helping to raise him and nurture him. So I have an understanding from an immediate family perspective, but it didn't stop there. Many, many years later, I met this beautiful young lady. We fall in love and we begin a family, and we have 3 sons. And the youngest son at the age of 2 is diagnosed with autism. And so I've dealt with it on both sides of the spectrum. So what we have to do, and I know you've been doing it, but we have to stick to it and we have to be consistent, is dig up those resources that are out there for us to tap into, because I think you're going to take away from this session the richness and the plethora of resources that are available that we've been able to compile for you, where you can go and you can find people in the trenches of our community who are certified and credentialed professionals at what they do that are available to help us to answer questions, to provide services, support, and advocacy, not only the individuals, but you can also find government agencies at the local, state, and national level that have people that are there to help and to provide support. So in part, that's the mission of Men Impact Change. That's what we're here to do. And then once we find those resources, make sure that we move to action to make it happen. Here in the state of Maryland, specifically, I'm in Howard County, but the entire state of Maryland has been phenomenal in terms of providing support services for my autistic son. My brother is in Virginia, specifically Chesterfield County. The county has been phenomenal, wonderful, fantastic, but you never know until you get access to that resource and the information. So I'm not here to say that you haven't been already doing that, but I am here to say that we're going to continue to advocate and support and walk alongside you as you get those resources and you start to work the plan, because the information is definitely out there. So I'm hoping that that's an encouraging word to kind of lift you up and to build you up. That's what we're here to do, and to make sure that you have access to the information that you need.
All right. I would say young men, just like young women, or men, just like women, also want to be listened to. Most of the times we come with our stories and we want to give them how our day has been, and they keep on going. The kids come, they need pens, they need paper, they need all that, but we don't get a chance to be listened to. And that's the problem with the young men. Nobody listens to them. We give them our ideas. They're sitting down telling us, this is my plan, this is what I want to do. When did you last sit down with your son as parents or as a community? Sit them at the dining table. Say, all right, how was your day? Tell us, what are your plans? Not you telling them what are their plans. I know that because we do that sometimes, my wife and I, with our son, which has changed a lot our relationship with him because it it's they see somebody is starting to listen to them because that's all they need. They need to be listened to. Of course, they need some input you're going to give them. But at the same time, as parents, if we don't get in touch with our kids, we don't know when they are starting to change. Supposing, how do you know your son is going through a change in face? Maybe they are sleeping more than before. They are not eating more. They are doing other things that they were not doing before, but now you're not catching it. They're in their room more often than they were before. So these are things that we also need to catch as parents. And you start thinking, what is going on here? And then start asking. Just don't even have to ask probing questions. Just ask, everything okay? We need to set more time here. And you start checking to see if anything is going on. How is school? What plans are you going up with? And also getting more men involved in our young men's lives. Maybe the dad, if there's no dad, go to the therapist. We have a lot of men therapists, as we say, men of color. We also have pastors. If not, we may start an organization like a youth group. Let the young men go out and hang out with other young men, as long as you know them. And that's why I sometimes invite. If there's nobody inviting the young men, or you don't know where they're going, you be the parent, be the house that the young men come to visit. Start something like, let's hang out together. Let's have a fire pit, and let's put some grill. Let's do some grill. Invite your friends. So get to know the friends. That way they're hanging out because they also want to get that emotion out of them. But you can't, because we are social. So if we take away the social part from them, we're also taking away their chances of them reaching out and talking, expressing themselves to somebody else, because they can feel better expressing themselves to somebody of their own age, some things and some other things. The other last thing is, I would say, the dad and the mom, or the man and the woman in the house, have different relationships with the child, because there's some things the child will come to the dad, maybe finance matters or serious matter, he'll go to the dad talk. But if the mom is open with their son, the mom is open with the boy, they will know each and everything the boy wants to do, because they feel somehow it's in genetics or it's in nature. They'll feel more comfortable expressing some things to the mom, and that will help them cope. But also, as a parent, we need to know what are some of the things I'm going to watch out for, just so that I know I can help my kid if they're in trouble. Are they becoming more aggressive? Are they getting angry when we talk with them? Because you might tell them something and they just you observe an outburst. They get angry. They get aggressive. You're like, oh, there must be something here. And that's why you step back. Don't step into the argument. Just step back and like, I'm missing something here. That's why you can also start reaching out to other parents or somebody you are close and say, how do I deal with this? If you see unusual behavior, or somebody says, maybe nobody will miss me, those are things you need to start picking up. Somebody say, I know somebody will not miss me. Nobody will miss me if I do this one. Or been thinking about, I'm not that important anymore. Nobody cares about. Those are very important. You have to, when somebody says that, catch them at that point when they say, oh, you're not important. You want to ask them, why do you feel that way? You have to acknowledge their feelings. Don't be the fixer, because most trouble we have as parents is we try to fix it all. Somebody, that's our role as men, is to fix everything. Somebody says, I have this trouble. Oh, let me show you how to fix it. No, sometimes people don't need fixing, they just need listening too, so that we get to know what's happening. Thank you.
Awesome.
Wow, this is so, it's so rich. This session is really, really rich. I hope everybody that's in this session is just gleaning from it. And also, I also want to acknowledge the people that are watching us from Facebook. We really appreciate you tuning in, and I hope this is also helping you guys. So I'm going to ask the next question, which is where and how do you draw strength while as men you wrestle with thoughts of depression or suicidal thoughts?
I'm sorry, repeat that question again.
Where and how do you draw strength while as a man you wrestle with thoughts of depression or suicidal thoughts?
At that point, if an individual is, has suicidal thoughts, one of the initial things that I would do would be, as a therapist, right? Number one, I'm going to assure the person's safety. And one of the initial questions that I do, we'll do a safety plan. But one of the initial things that I would do so they can draw strength from is help them find hope, help them find reasons to live, right? Because at that point, if you are experiencing suicidal ideations, you are at obviously a really challenging place, and hope is not something that you really have at that point. And so it's like finding hope. And I think when we talk about finding hope, I've heard many people that have experienced suicidal thoughts say, Rashad, I don't have any hope. And I think sometimes going back down to a basic level for some people really helps them. When I'm saying like take it to a basic level, some people need to hear that, that they have family, whether they feel like they're supported by those family or not, right? Some people need to hear that they have things like that they have a residence, that they have a job. I mean, these are basic things that you can start to build upon, because if somebody, again, has experienced suicidal thoughts, then a lot of the things that you and I may see as things to build upon, that person is no longer looking in that same direction, right? They're looking in a very myopic lens, only what's in front of them in terms of what they're going through. And then I think another thing to draw strength from is understand that a lot of times when we get to the place of suicidal thoughts, is that it's very momentary. We can't see beyond whatever this barrier is that's in front of our face. So you start to ask the questions, what if this situation passes? What does your life look like after that? Because a lot of people are just looking at it from a very short-sighted lens. So those are the kind of things that people can draw strength from, trying to help them find hope. And then I think in some of those instances, even if somebody says, hey, I'm thinking about harming myself, right? What if this situation resolved? What does your life look like? Or what if this situation changes just a little bit? What does your life begin to look like after that? And then a lot of people, that often helps people, because maybe I'm just looking at it because this is all I see. What if I can give you some resources? What if I can provide you with some help? And it sort of, it helps people, because again, people just see, when you're at that point, you don't see anything but what's in front of you. And a lot of those things that we see are in front of us are really not as detrimental as we may think, right? A lot of our cognitions at that point are really unhealthy and really irrational. And if we can help somebody sort of change the lens that they're looking at it from, it kind of helps them.
And without simplifying it too much, because of the human element, everybody needs affirmation. Everybody needs to know that they're appreciated. So what a great time to affirm someone and just remind them of how special they are, whether they feel like it or not, whether they agree with it or not. Just remind them just how special they are and how precious they are, and how much they're valued, and how much we care and honor them, because everybody needs affirmation. And that's a great time to affirm that person, to kind of change their mindset about how they think about themselves. And as Rashad just said, the current situation that we're dealing with. Again, not trying to simplify it, but oftentimes it is the simple things in life that we can use to turn things around. So just something to think about.
That's great.
Yeah, and just to piggyback on that, the bad news is that the human mind is not designed to be positive. It's designed to survive. When somebody says, I feel like I want to kill myself or suicide, it's because they have lost something that gives them that survive. What am I here for? What hope? That's the word, hope. So survival. That's why they say survive gives you the hope to survive. Find something that makes this person find some glimmer of survival. What is it that will give me uh, survival? But also something we have lost with technology, something that we have lost touch with is the art of writing, journaling. If you have a journal, here's what my go-to thing. I tell people, all right, just sit down, write 10 good things right now, 10 good things about yourself. You have to know yourself because what you are doing is you're tuning their mind so they stop focusing on what they don't want to focus. You're trying to force them to do something else. And tell them, we have left brain, we have the right brain, but just take a paper, take a journal and write thoughts as they flow to you. Don't filter them. Don't try to say this is wrong. Write a letter to somebody. Let's say you want to talk to a therapist, but you don't want to talk to one actually. You can be a therapist yourself. Just take a writing material, sit down and write a letter to God, or a letter to my dad, or a letter to somebody you are bitter with. Don't have to give it to them, but you write and express yourself. Let all those thoughts flow and don't look at it then. And then go to sleep. Wake up in the morning, read it again. Burn it. If it's still, the feeling is still there, write it again until you have to get that out of you. If you don't get it out, it will still keep in there. And that way you are getting to know yourself. And one more thing is the art of meditation. If people can learn how to meditate, there's that meditation and also breathing techniques, because if you get in trouble, just breathe, take a deep breath, exhale, and you take it a decibel or two lower than where you are. Just those brief techniques of breathing out, just body scan meditation, think how, just feel that air coming into your body, just meditate. Those simple things and writing, journaling, and that will start getting you in touch with your emotions. It will start getting you in touch with yourself. You start to get to know things that you didn't even know existed in there.
Charles, that is so powerful, and especially the point that you said. Our community, we have really lost the art of journaling and of writing, and of course, because of the technology and life just getting busy in general. And that hit a nail, because looking back at some of my journals, like most people at the very beginning of the year, we all buy a journal and we have intentions, all good intentions to use them. But by the end of the year, it's not even halfway done. So that is something I intend to reignite moving forward. So the next question here is, one of the ways to break mental health stigma is by openly, I believe we've talked about it. We've already answered that question. So what are some of the signs or symptoms of someone struggling with mental illness? And, that is very similar to a question here that came on the chat. I believe, looking through here, where can one find help without being classified or exposed as a person with mental illness? So if someone doesn't have that exposure to mental illness, how can we identify the symptoms or the signs of mental illness? And Kevin?
Yeah, Esther, I believe, did a wonderful job in summarizing it in the chat. She says signs of someone with mental illness includes impulsive behaviors, or being more irritated than usual, not functioning like their usual selves, change in habits, general appearance, their eating and sleeping habits, talking about feelings of loneliness or despair, excessive worry, trouble concentrating, and substance misuse. So Esther, thank you so much. You summarized it well. Those are definitely some signs of a person, man or woman, with mental illness.
Awesome. So the other question is, being an active listener is key to supporting our loved ones struggling with mental health. How can we do so when they're pulling away from us? And Rashad, I think that's a good question for you.
Yeah, and I think about that. That happens quite a bit, to be honest with you. And I think if you are trying to be an active listener to somebody who, you know, you care about and they're pulling away from you, I think it's very important to understand that they are not pulling away from you so much, but maybe it's the illness that is driving them away from the help that you want to offer them, right? And sometimes it becomes very frustrating. Hey, I'm trying to help you. I want to be an active listener, but you're kind of pulling away from me. And to kind of separate, they're not necessarily, and I'm going old school, I'm showing my age here with this word, they're not necessarily like dissing you, right? They're just maybe dissing the help or trying to dismiss the help that you want to offer at that moment. And I think that's an important distinction to make, because if you personalize it, then it becomes even more challenging for you to be an active listener, because now you're frustrated because you've personalized what's taking place. It's less about you, but probably more about what they're encountering at that moment, and just being able to separate the two. And I think the other thing is it relates to active listening. One of the things that I tell all of my clients during an initial session, my goal as a therapist is to try to listen 10 times more than what I talk, because I believe that you're going to tell me what you need if I am actively listening. So actively listening, for people out there that are listening to this question, it doesn't necessarily always mean responding and just providing advice so much, because a lot of times we are quick to do that. And that can be, you know, that can cause somebody to shut down even more. Hey, I wanted you to listen because I was going to tell you what I was experiencing, but yet, and somebody's here put it, right? I thought somebody was going to jump into conclusions, but sometimes we kind of jump to conclusions and hey, well, I think you should do this. And maybe that person doesn't want that at that moment. Maybe that person simply needs you to listen to what they are actually going through. And before we offer a lot of times suggestions, we shut down further conversation that can be had. And when we shut down that conversation, a lot of times we miss golden opportunities to help people. So active listening is just that. It's not listening saying, hey, I think you should do this. Maybe we need to listen in its entirety, because maybe that person just wants to be heard. And we're talking about, you know, suicide a lot. A lot of times, unfortunately, people have gone down that path because they felt like that nobody has listened to them. Nobody has actually heard them and what they're going through. And I see that quite a bit.
Of everything that we've discussed tonight on this panel, that's one of the most important takeaways, I believe, because it's in the conversation that people start to unpack the why they feel the way that they feel and they're doing the things that they're doing. Don't interrupt, don't change the subject, and just let them talk. The answer resides within them. And over time, given enough time, they'll start to communicate exactly what's on their heart, what's on their mind. And now the professional, i.e. Rashad, can now unpack that and then start to help and assist and support and advocate. But it's the listening that really, really gets to the core, because given enough time, people will tell you how they feel and they'll tell you why they feel that way. But it takes time. It's a certain discipline to listen. God gave us 2 ears and 1 mouth for a reason. And the more we get used to that and use it as a good instrument, the more we can be available to help people where they are.
Yeah, it's a good point that we are all agreeing on the same thing. We've said the same message. People want to be listened to. And remember, these are people who've grown up. What we are telling them now, we want to listen, which is going against everything they have had growing up. Because growing up, nobody listened to them. They were told what to do. And now you're telling them, okay, I want to listen. So it takes a while for that to register in their mind. What are we doing again? So don't give up the first time. You maybe they are listening, but they're not used to listen. They're not used to you listening. So they're like, are you sure you're listening? And then somehow you might interrupt what they're saying. So that's why they start pushing away, because they're like, I came to you for a reason, but you're not even listening, even when you say you listen. So before we get to that point, now we are at that point, but before, just go back. Let's change how we bring up our children. Let's change how we interact with the younger generation. Let's change how we interact with everybody. Let's have those family gatherings, family meetings. Let's start listening to each other from long time so that we are changing this narrative. As the children grow up, they realize, oh, it's different. We get to some input, we get to be listened to. And sometimes you just keep quiet and listen. Just let them know you're listening. Don't say anything. Bite your tongue. Do whatever you can. I'm just going to listen. If you feel like you're going to talk, just walk away. Just go walk away. Say, give me a second. Just go outside. Throw, throw something like a paper or bottle in the trash. Come back. Come on. Okay, where are we? Sit down again and listen to them. Let them finish. That's all they need until they get to that point where they're comfortable. It may take 2 sessions, 3 sessions, a week, but remember they're not used to this. So it's something new which they're trying to overcome and start listening.
Wow, this is just amazing. And Charles, you were just talking on something, and I remembered distinctly. My dad is not living anymore, but I do remember he used to let us all kids sit at the table, and we would air what we were going through. And even though what our feelings were acknowledged, that's the one thing that I remember about my dad. So that is a really great point that you brought. So thank you for that.
Yes, it's a really great point, but I also want to acknowledge that there are some members of Men Impact Change that do not have a family, or they don't have a healthy relationship with their family members. In that case, I would suggest that you make your own network. And as Men Impact Change, this conversation is not this is not the end of this conversation. We are actually in the process of having a support group specifically geared towards mental health. We're going to share more details on how you can be part of it. Just a forum where you can just come in and share freely and just feel that support system on there. So stay tuned. We are going to follow up with an email on how you can be part of that support group. The other thing that I would also like to mention here before we go to the next step is we have some polls here. I'm going to launch the poll. If you can please answer some of those questions, because we want to make sure that we were able to at least move a needle. We're not saying we are going to change the narrative or change everything, but at least even move the needle in this particular subject. Please go in and answer some of those questions. There are only 4 questions. And then I'll give you just a couple of minutes. Some of them are yes or no questions, very easy. All right, 10 more seconds. All right. Awesome, awesome, awesome. So this is the result of the poll. So the first question was, what prompted you to join the webinar? And it looks like I'm a mental health advocate, and also I want to gain the tools to fight this was the top choice. And then, do you or someone you know is struggling with mental health? And we had 60% say yes. Do you feel better equipped to fight mental illness? I'm very happy to see 100% on there. So kudos to each and every speaker here for sharing some of those tools that we can use. And the last question is, would you consider being part of Men Impact Change? And the answer was yes. We will share some details on how you can be part of Men Impact Change. Perfect. All right, so if you have additional questions, we have just 2 minutes left. I know we've gone a little bit over, but this was such an important conversation and we needed to have it. In the meantime, I would like to go ahead and really give a shout out to, I don't know if you can see my screen here. Can you see my screen with the partners? Okay, perfect. So we want to again say thank you to our dear partners here that made this webinar possible and made it free for everyone. Hakuna Matata Shop, Lakida Homes Realty Group, and Swahili Village. We really appreciate you. Most of them are joining. They're already on the chat. Please make sure you connect with them and support them. They are all small businesses. We definitely need to support them so that we can continue offering these workshops. The actionable steps, one would recommend that you join the Men Impact Change Facebook community. It's simply Men Impact Change -MIC. It's a Facebook group. Join on there so that you can keep in touch with some of the initiatives that we have coming up. Also follow us on social media at Men Impact Change. Subscribe to menimpactchange.org/about-us to also keep in touch with the newsletters that we send every 2 weeks. Also, we are a nonprofit. Be sure, if you can, to make Men Impact Change as a charity of choice on Amazon Smile. You can also make a donation by texting 443-210-3293. Save the dates. Again, we've mentioned that this is not the last session that we are having on this topic. We want to make sure we move the needle as far as we can. So the next session, we are going to focus on millennials and Gen Zs. That session will be held on March 17th from 7 to 8 o'clock. If one of my teammates can drop the link for everyone to register, we recommend that you register right now, take action right now, so that you can get all the notifications and reminders. The next session will be in April 7th, where we are going to share actionable steps to sustain a healthy lifestyle. And thanks to everyone here, all the panelists and our keynote speaker, Mr. Rashad Mills. They gave us very helpful resources that we can actually use moving forward. The parent hotline number is on there. This is a website dedicated to helping families who are in a crisis situation. And the next one is the crisis text line and the IMA Live, which is a virtual crisis online, and it's a chat center. And we also have BetterHelp and a depression hotline and a national suicide prevention number as well. Take a screenshot. And don't worry if you can't take a screenshot, we will definitely follow up with an email and send these resources to you. Thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate all of you for sticking with us for an hour and about 20 minutes. And most importantly, thank you, Rashad, for honoring our call. I know it was only about a week ago when we reached out and you said a resounding yes. This will not be the end. We will keep reaching out to you for resources or even support. And I know a lot of people may be asking if they want to schedule an appointment, or if they have a son that they would like to schedule an appointment with you. Do you have any sessions open right now? I know you said you're very, very booked, but is there an opportunity where they can, or how can they schedule an appointment if that's possible?
Yep, I will put the link for the practice that I'm with. I'll put it in the chat. Is that okay?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, I'll put it in the chat now.
All right, so as he works on that, you are welcome to stay on a little bit, or if you have to leave, we completely understand. We will follow up and send you the recording of the session. And also we will definitely, all right, so counseling.org, that is how you can connect with Mr. Rashad Mills. So again, thank you so much for tuning in. This is definitely a very helpful session. And what I can say from all of this, other than the main topic or the main key points that you pointed out, Kevin, about active listening, I would challenge everyone that is still watching, whether on Zoom or on Facebook, before you sleep tonight, call one person or just identify one person in your household that you're going to affirm. Give them an affirmation. It doesn't matter what is the kind of relationship you may have or the conflict or whatever situation you may be dealing with. But before you sleep, call up someone or go to your son's room, reach out to your spouse and just give them 1 or 2 affirmations. It will mean the world to them. You don't know what kind of situation they are in, and it's going to make a huge change. And as we said, we are all human first. So we are definitely going to create an environment where we can openly talk about our emotions. Esther will be in charge of it. She is a mother who has dealt with a son who was dealing with depression. So we are working on a platform or a way that we can continuously have this conversation throughout the year. So stay tuned. And like I said, this is not the end. We are definitely going to continue offering these resources. Again, thank you for tuning in, and thank you so much, Rashad. Thank you, Charles, Esther, and Kevin, and have a good night, everyone.
Have a great night, everybody.
You too. Thank you. Thank you, everybody.
Okay. Good night.
Right.
Good night.
Good night.